No longer shook up later? No, she seemed very calm at that time. Did you ask her if she recalled the rights you had previously given to her? No. Did you ask her if she had any previous business with the criminal justice system? No. Did you ask her if she understood what it meant to waive a right? No. Did you paraphrase any of the rights that you read from the card? I read the rights 1 through 4. I asked her if she understood each of those rights. I asked her if she gave up her rights to have a lawyer present while I talked to her. She said that she did. I asked her if she wished to talk about her case. She said she did. Did you ask her what level of schooling she had graduated from? No. No further questions. You may proceed. And Deputy Hollingsworth, what was the conversation that followed? Her exact words to me was, "Sure, I'll talk about it." Your Honor, I object at this time in that I don't believe the people have shown beyond a reasonable doubt that she understood and knowingly gave up her rights. Is that the only objection at this point? Yes, Your Honor. Objection overruled. Excuse me, Your Honor. Also, I'll object. I don't believe the corpus has been established yet. That objection is sustained. With respect to the PCP that you found, in particular the liquid PCP, did you form any opinion as to whether or not he has not said he found any PCP yet? He said he found an amber jar and a pack of Cools and a Cool cigarette. You have not given him an opportunity to do anything on this. With respect to the items you found in the residence, did you form any opinion as to what those items were? Yes, I did. And what was your opinion regarding the filter-tip Cool brand cigarette that I recovered from the cabinet in the kitchen? It was wet to my touch and emitted an odor that I associate with the illicit drug phencyclidine. Also, the amber glass bottle, Schilling brand bottle that I recovered from the confines of the bathroom contained a liquid. Upon me smelling the bottle after opening it, it was indicative of liquid phencyclidine to me. With respect to the items you found, did you form any opinion as to whether or not these items were held for the purpose of personal use or the purposes of sale? It was my opinion, to the amount recovered, that it was for sale. And on what did you base that opinion with respect to the amount? I based the liquid amount coupled with how many cigarettes, in my opinion, that is, how many Cool brand cigarettes could be dipped or saturated with the phencyclidine, in my opinion, would have been in excess of over 25 cigarettes that could be saturated with that amount of phencyclidine. The people have no further questions. Cross-examination? Yes. Officer Hollingsworth, you indicated that you made an observation through a window of the residence. Is that correct? That is correct, sir. Would you describe the area this window was in relation to the door? It would be approximately 2 to 3 feet from the door. There is no back door to the location. It's a kitchen window that is directly in front of the sink, in the kitchen and overlooking the driveway and the front door and the sidewalk or the porch area, directly in front of the front door. Is that to the right or left of the front door? If I was facing the front door, it would be to my right. And how high from the porch area was it? How high would you say it was? As I recall, it was approximately chest level, maybe a little lower. Just 1 minute at 2:25. Officer Hollingsworth, you indicated that you made an observation through a window of the residence. Is that correct? That is correct, sir. Would you describe the area this window was in relation to the door? It would be approximately 2 to 3 feet from the front door. There is no back door to the location. It's a kitchen window that is directly in front of the sink in the kitchen and overlooking the driveway and the front door and the sidewalk or the porch area directly in front of the front door. Is that to the right or left of the front door? If I was facing the front door, it would be to my right. And how high from the porch area was it? How high did you say it was? As I recall, it was approximately chest level, maybe a little lower. Were there any kinds of curtains? There were some sheer curtains in front of it. They were parted approximately 8 inches, a little less than a foot. Was there a light source inside of the house? Yes. Would you describe it, please? I don't know what the light source was, although I could see clearly within the confines of the residence. What was it that you could see through that window? I saw this woman seated next to you, turning away from the sink area, exposing her back to me. And she ran from that sink area, directly away from the front door. She went around a service counter that separated the kitchen from the service area and proceeded around a corner from my view. A corner? Yes. It's a corner that goes from the kitchen in through a doorway and into the back quarters of that residence. She left the kitchen area. Yes, she did. She left the kitchen area. Through a doorway, the kitchen area. This one room is shared by the kitchen and living room. It's only separated by a service counter. 2:25, four voice for 5 minutes. We are in direct by defense. Now, at any time during Saturday night, were you with Bobby Walker? No. Now, you have described a suede, bulky sweater that Willie was wearing? Yes. Did that bulky sweater extend below his waist, his belt line? Yes. Was the room, that is the gambling shack, after you and Linda entered, was it quiet or was it rowdy with noise? Could you describe the noise conditions? Objection. The question is compound. I will withdraw it. Were there any noises in the gambling shack after you entered? Yeah, talk. There was no yelling. There was loud talking. Was the talking coming from the area of the pool table where the gambling was taking place? Objection. It calls for a conclusion. Well, sustained. I have nothing further at this time, Your Honor. May I, Your Honor, ask one more question? I'm sorry, counsel. Proceed. To your knowledge, did Willie have any money on the evening of November 21 or the early morning of November 22? Objection. Calling for a conclusion. You may answer that question. I don't know. You don't know? I really don't know what he had. Do you know if Willie was working at the time? Yes, he was. Objection immaterial. You may answer that question. Yes. Where was he working? Wayne's Manufacturing. I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you. Miss Medina, the first time you mentioned being at the gambling shack on the 21st or 22nd of November was when Mr. Art Johnson of the District Attorney's Office talked with you last week. Is that correct? Right. And prior to that, you, in your written statements to the police department, hadn't at all mentioned the gambling shack? No, I hadn't. Or in any other statements you had given to anyone else, you had never mentioned the gambling shack? No. And the first time you remembered then having been at the gambling shack was when Mr. Johnson indicated to you that another witness had seen you there. Is that right? Right. And then you remembered that you had been there? Yes. As I understand it, you went to the gambling shack from the nightlife where Willie told you to get rid of your date and come with him? Right. And you went immediately from the nightlife to the gambling shack. I made the phone call with Willie and Linda. Right. And then you went from the gambling shack and made a phone call? No, I made the phone call first. Okay. Where did you meet Linda to go make the phone call with her? We were together all the time. All the time from when? From the time we left the nightlife and got to the Vets Club. How did you get from the nightlife to the Vets Club with Willie and Linda? You rode in the same car with Willie and Linda then, is that right? Yes. When you say the nightlife to the Vets Club, what you mean is from the nightlife to the gambling shack? Yes, okay. And I take it then when you got there, Willie got out of the car? We all got out. Where did you go when you got out? We were standing in front of the Vets Club, all right. And then when Linda said she had to make a phone call, so she made a phone call. And then you went with Linda and left Willie where? He was going into the Vets Club at this time. Into the Vets, yes. You are quite certain of that, not the gambling shack? Yes, okay. And you went with Linda in Willie's car and made the phone call? No, we walked. You walked? Uh-huh. How far was it where you made the phone call? A couple of blocks. When you left the nightlife with Willie and Linda, was the nightlife still open? No, it was closing. Was it open when you left? No, it was closed. Do you know what time it closes? 2. And how long did it take you to get from there to the Vets? We got there around 2:30 or so, a quarter after 2, between then. And we was out in the front for a while before we left. And did you go any place besides the nightlife to the Vets? No. And how far apart are those two establishments? Not far, just a mile or 2. And you got, that was at 2 when the nightlife closed. You left with Willie and Linda? Uh-huh. And what time again was it that you got to the Vets then? Around a quarter after 2, 2:30, I don't know. And did you do something in between the time you left the nightlife? No. And did you go immediately from the nightlife to the Vets? Yes. And you didn't walk that mile or a mile and a half? You rode in the car? Right. With Willie and Linda? Right. All right. And so anyway, after you got there, then you and Linda went from there to make this phone call? Yes. After the phone call, you returned. And where did you go? We went to the gambling shack. Now, You had just left Willie, is that right? Out in front when you went and made your phone call? Yes. In fact, you had seen him go into the vets? Right. Is there any reason that you know of that you went to the gambling shack instead of to the vets? I believe Linda poked her head and we both walked to the front door when we came back from the phone. And she poked her head in and then we went next door. You poked your head into the vets? Right. Did you poke your head in? No, I was standing right behind her. There is a partition and then around the partition there is a... She poked her head in? Yeah, I was right behind her. And then you went from the vets to the gambling shack. And then we went from the vets to the gambling shack. You didn't stay at the vets for any period of time? No. Okay, we are in cross-examination by plaintiff's attorney. Cross by plaintiff's attorney. Dr. Aguirre, in your discussions with Sarah, you say she told you that her father showed her how to manipulate her vagina. Is that correct? Well, she didn't use those words manipulate or vagina, but she pointed to her genitals. Can you tell me, she showed me down there. Can you tell me exactly how you brought the subject up? Yes, I mentioned a moment ago in my testimony that I presented the picture. And I asked her if the father had either touched her or tickled her. And then she volunteered the information about what he showed her. She volunteered that? Yes, she did. And can you tell me exactly what she said when she volunteered that information? Yes. The comments are on this drawing. The copy that I have is almost illegible. She says, I squeeze here, pointing to the vulva, and she says, Daddy showed me, and she took the forefinger and her thumb and went like this. Did you inquire of Sarah as to when this took place, when Daddy showed her this? Yes, I did. When did she say it happened? She could not recall the time. Could she recall the circumstances under which it happened? She said it was in the bedroom. And she said that Daddy specifically showed her, not that she saw Daddy do this. That's right. Okay. Dr. Aguirre, if I were to tell you that Sarah's in the habit at her father's home, excuse me, Your Honor, Sarah's in the habit in her father's home of taking her bath and going in on the bed to dry. Would you consider that to be unusual behavior? No. Would you consider that to have any kind of sexual connotation? No. All right. I noticed on your report the 3 things that you listed that Sarah said she had to do is that she had to bathe and dry herself? Yes. Now, do you find any particular sexual manifestations or connotations in that? No. In families, you can expect that people, whether you are an adult or a child, sibling, to dry. If it goes beyond that and becomes seductive, that is another matter. Okay. Was there any indication, though, of seductive behavior in the child bathing and drying herself? Not that aspect, no. Okay. And you indicate here that she was also told to go to her father's bed nude. Did the child explain to you under what circumstances she did this? No, she did not. If I were to suggest to you that when the child comes out of the bathroom and the father's in the bathroom trying to clean up after her, there is insufficient room for the 2 of them, the child goes in on the bed. Would you find any kind of sexual connotation in that? Well, only if the child is encouraged to be nude and not encouraged to put on her undergarments and clothing, which is also very natural for parents to do. So that if it's a need for a parent to have the child remain nude, then that would be seductive. Was there any indication by Sarah that she was told to remain nude for any length of time, or she was told not to put her pajamas or nightgown or whatever on? Was there any suggestion she was told to do anything other than go on the bed? No. Okay, so basically the thing that we are left with then is Sarah's indicating her father showed her how to manipulate, ostensibly, her vaginal area. That's correct. Okay. To go back in time somewhat, you dealt with Mr. Klieger and his daughter for a number of months. In fact, for the better part of a year now. Is that correct? Well, no. My case was initiated in April. So basically since April, 3/4 of the year. We are now into November, the better part of the year, right? Okay. During the period of time from April until now, you wrote your initial report in May. You had an opportunity to observe Mr. Klieger in relationship with his daughter. Is that correct? Yes. And did you observe any extraordinary or unusual behavior between the two during that period of time? No, I did not. How would you describe the relationship between Mr. Klieger and his daughter during that initial period of examination by you? It seemed normal and close. All right. I believe you indicated in your report that the child had a good relationship with both parents. Yes. All right. And during that period of time, did you make any observations of any particular hostility or anger on the part of Mr. Klieger towards his wife? Not during the evaluation. All right. You did not make any such indication in your reports, did you? Not that I recall. You did make an indication in that report, though, I believe, that Mrs. Klieger showed considerable hostility towards Mr. Klieger. Isn't that correct? Yes. As a matter of fact, didn't you at one point tell Mr. Klieger that Mrs. Klieger had a bad attitude? I don't recall that I said that. I believe that my comment was that she tends to be very quiet, and sometimes extracting information from her was not as spontaneous as it was with him. Okay. But after your evaluation of the two parents and the child in that initial action, you felt comfortable in suggesting to the court that 3 weeks on and 3 weeks off custody and visitation was appropriate in the circumstances? Yes, I did. Okay. Subsequent to the order in June, which implemented that 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off custody situation, Mr. Klieger came to you for counseling in improving his parenting skills. Is that correct? Yes. And did he express any particular anxieties or confusion with regard to the relationship with his child at that time? No. He did express any particular hostility toward his ex-wife at that time? Yes, he did. Okay. And what was the nature of that? How did it manifest itself? He was very angry about the fact that he had to continue to pay the money for the school. And he was upset because he didn't have documents like the birth certificate and school data and so on. His desire was to have the child go to another school as opposed to the school that the child was attending. And so he was very explicit in his anger and frustration about that. He felt it was not appropriate or fair for him to have to pay child support and also for the school. Okay, so his anger or anxiety at that time was primarily around money matters, the financial relationship, predominantly, yes. When Mr. Klieger came to you for the counseling on his parenting skills, how many sessions did you have with him? 3. Was Sarah present at those sessions? Yes, she was. How would you describe his relationship with Sarah during those sessions? I would say very adequate. Did it appear to be a close relationship? Yes. The child didn't become angry at him at any time? No. And she didn't hit him with anything? No. She didn't have any trouble relating to her or focusing his attention on her? No, he didn't. Okay. After that 3rd session, when was the next point in time at which you had contact with either of the Kliegers? That was when Miss Minkies had called me on the telephone regarding the allegations or the comments made by Mrs. Rondinera. Okay. And what was that date again? I think you gave us about 3, but you didn't pin it down. Mrs. Minkies called to me and it was either on Monday, which would have been the 11th or the 12th, or on Friday, the previous day. And then Mrs. Rondinera called me on the 14th or 15th of August. You don't keep any type of record as to phone calls that you received so we could more closely pinpoint the date? Well, I keep a record of phone calls of those messages that come on my tape. If I talk to people personally, I do not. Okay, so you are saying that Mrs. Klieger called you either on Tuesday the 14th or Wednesday the 15th? That's correct. Do you keep a calendar that would indicate that, in fact, you were home? Yes. Both those days? Yes. Would your calendar reflect that you were home on the 14th? Yes. I had appointments all day. Okay. You indicated that Sarah told you that her father was under the sheets, but I believe you said that she didn't indicate whether she was there with him or not. That's correct. I pursued that conversation with her, but it got blocked, and I was not able to determine from the child whether they were under the sheets together or alone. All I could get from her was the fact that the father was nude under the sheets and he would wiggle. Okay, and Sarah didn't indicate to you whether she was talking about under the sheets in her bed or under the sheets of his bed or where she observed this. My understanding was his bed. His bed? Yes. She was with him under the sheets in his bed? In his bed, yes. Okay. You seem to indicate, let me back up for a minute. In any of your prior contacts with Sarah, either in the initial court action, your evaluation, or the subsequent meetings with her father for the parenting skills, has Sarah ever displayed any kind of awareness or preoccupation with sex or sexual organs or anything of that nature? Well, she did not touch herself or anything of that nature. But quite often, in those 3 sessions in which the father and child and I were together, on the parenting skill issues, the child often would lift her dress or she would put her feet up on the couch, revealing her underpants, for example, and the father would generally say, you know, put your dress down or put your feet down from the couch, so on. That happened maybe 5 or 6 different times. So she was very spontaneous in that sense, but no other, would you say, behaviors that would suggest specific sexuality? Would you say the father showed any unusual interest in the child's underpants at those particular instances? No, I think he was more concerned at that point with social appropriateness in the presence of another person. Okay, Dr. Aguirre, based on the things that you have stated so far, do you believe that Mr. Klieger molested his daughter? I don't like the word molested. I have an opinion about the activity. Let's handle my question first. Then we will get to your opinion. Do you believe he molested his daughter? No, I don't. Do you believe that he derives any sexual gratification from contact with his daughter? I can't answer that question. I don't know. Okay. Now you stated you have an opinion as to the, I forgot how you phrased it, the activity. Would you care to tell us your opinion of the activity at this time? Yes. It's my opinion that the child did not imagine what she was describing to me. It is my opinion that the father was physical with the child and probably not sexual. And there is a great difference between physical and sexual. And in molest or incestual kind of relationships, we would expect there would be the purpose, the intent, the motive to derive sexual gratification. Since the child said that the father had showed her, didn't say touched, then I am assuming that is what it was. Whatever the showing means, that was not specific. So there was physical activity and contact. All right. In dealing with children, I believe I heard you testify in times past that children of this age have not yet developed the ability to reason right from wrong, aside from what they are told is right or wrong. Is that correct? Yes. The right and wrong is not perceived by a 3.5 or 4-year-old. They blindly do what they are told to do, but the sense of what is right and wrong is not there. They just duplicate the value system of the parent and their expectations. Okay. In your training and experience as a psychologist, have you come across the statement, or there's probably a better word for it, but I can't think of it right now, that the subconscious mind is nothing more than a computer? I believe I have heard that. Okay, 200. Crossed by plaintiff. Ready? You had seen him go into the vet's, right. Is there any reason that you know of that you went to the gambling shack instead of to the vet's? I believe Linda poked her head and we both walked to the door when we came back from the phone. And she poked her head in and then we went next door. You poked your head into the vet's, right. Did you poke your head in? No, I was standing right behind her. There is a partition, and then around the partition there is she poked her head in. Yeah, I was right behind her. And then you went from the vet's to the gambling shack. Then we went from the vet's to the gambling shack. You didn't stay at the vet's for any period of time? No. Just long enough for her to poke her head in? Right. When you got into the gambling shack, then Willie was already inside? Yes. So you have no idea whether or not Mr. King searched Willie when he entered, is that right? No, I didn't. No, I don't. Because you didn't see Willie enter that night? No. And the other occasions when you were there, I believe you indicated those were both times when there was no gambling going on? Yes. And when there was no gambling going on, you didn't see Mr. King search anybody? No. One time when we were playing pool, some other people came in and then they started gambling and they cleared the table. But there was no time when people came in while the gambling was going on or while there wasn't gambling going on that you were able to observe Mr. King either searching or not searching anybody. Well, that night I was there, he didn't search anybody that came in when I got inside. On the prior occasions when there was no gambling, no. And you didn't see Willie enter, so you don't know whether or not he searched Willie? No. Now, this partition inside the gambling shack sits between the front door and the pool table where the pool playing or the gambling goes on. Is that right? Right. And there was a space, some distance, maybe a foot or two, between the outside wall of the gambling shack and this partition. Yes, maybe about 3 feet. And this partition isn't made out of any kind of substance that you can see through. No, it's not. It is not glass or opaque or anything like that. No. It's made out of a regular solid substance like any wall. Right. What time did you see Pamela Haynes at the gambling shack? I don't remember seeing Pamela there. You don't remember seeing her there at all? No, I don't. At no time during that evening? No. Could it have been as early as 11 o'clock that you were at the gambling shack? No. You are quite certain of that? Positive. Okay. You went from the gambling shack then to Dan's house? Right. And what time did you arrive at Dan's house? Around 3, I guess, a quarter to 3, 3 o'clock. Do you remember stating earlier that you got to Dan's house a little bit after 2? Objection, ambiguous. No, I don't remember. The answer may stand. When you left Dan's house, you went to Linda's and then ultimately back to the gambling shack? Yes. And all this time that you were doing this, going around, you were in Willie's car? Right. And you were with Linda? Right. And when you got back to the gambling shack and the vets, you saw Dan Carey outside? Yes. Now, was he there when you drove up? Yes. What was he doing? He was standing there. When we got out of the car, he walked towards us. He was just standing out on the sidewalk, as far as I can remember, yes. And while you were driving up, for how long could you see that he was standing there? I didn't notice him until we had pulled up and stopped, and then I saw him. Was it after you parked before you saw him standing there? Yeah. We parked right in front of the club, and then this argument started about the money. Right. Dan was arguing with Linda as much as he was arguing with you, was he not? Right. So it wasn't an argument directed just at you? No, not just at me. And Linda was putting in her 2 cents about the money, right? Yeah. You understand what I mean about putting in her 2 cents? Yes. She was standing back playing a Casper during this argument? No. And as I understand it, Dan cursed. Is that right? Yes. And what he said was, damn it, I want my money. Uh-huh. And then when you left that area, you rode with Dan then? Right. Over to Dan's house? Yes. While Willie and Linda went in Willie's car? Right. Where was Dan's car parked? In front also. How about Willie's car? In front. They were parked right by each other. And you don't remember any conversation with Dan while you rode back to his house? No. I started to talk to him. He was mad, so I didn't say anything else. I didn't say anything. I take it if you don't remember any of that conversation,